Hello and welcome to season 11, episode 7 of Sports Scene. I'm Sam Arslanian, the sports director here at Annenberg Media. We're coming to you live remotely, and while our show may look a little bit different, we are committed to providing you with coverage of USC athletics during this time. I'm back home in my home state of Michigan right now, but I'm joined with my team all across America. Tyler Meyerly in her adequately named home state of California, in her home city of Corona, California. Reagan Griffin Jr. back in Memphis, Tennessee, and Trevor, I believe you're down in Florida right now. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for taking the time to be here. I want to get started with a little bit of breaking news that we have. Big O Onyeka Onkungwu is going to the NBA draft. He just announced that today. He's a freshman forward for USC. He didn't get to play in the postseason due to the coronavirus outbreak, but he did make a lasting mark on USC during his season here. The move was expected. He's the number 6 prospect in the nation, according to ESPN. This season, he led the Trojans in points, rebounds, and blocks. He also led the Pac-12 in field goal percentage by a wide margin. Reagan, I'm going to let you start first, since you are our Annenberg Media's basketball beat writer. Reagan, what were your initial reactions to this?
Deservedly so for Onyeka Onkungwu. I think he's a guy that's kind of lived in the shadow a little bit for a lot of his career, playing at Chino Hills with the Ball brothers. 5-star recruit, but he wasn't as highly touted as some of the other guys. But, he's always been a great player, and this is great for him. Deservedly so. He was an absolutely phenomenal throughout his time here. One of the better players to have come through here in a while. So he'll definitely be a lottery pick, and all congratulations to him. This is a great one.
Yeah, it was short-lived, but I'm just happy that we got to see Okongwu in the Cardinal and gold. I mean, what an incredible time it was to have him here. It's not often that USC has bona fide one-and-done, like top 10 lottery players like him. I think he's really the best prospect that we've had since DeMar DeRozan. The only thing that makes me a little upset is just that he didn't get the chance to display his skills in the Pac-12 tournament or the NCAA tournament. I was really excited for that. I think he could have put the team on his back, carried USC to maybe a Sweet 16 run. So I'm a little bit upset about that, but I definitely appreciate the time that we did get to see him in the Cardinal and gold, and very happy for him and his decision.
Yeah, I think going into the season, everybody who was watching Big O was expecting him to be a one-and-done player. I would have liked to see what he could have brought to the table in the NCAA tournament, it was looking like USC had a pretty good shot. But I think he was on the right track, feeding off of the best momentum. And I think he was really finding what place he belonged in this team that we were seeing from USC. I'm excited to see where he lands. He deserves it completely. Not only is he a great athlete and player on the court, but he's just an exceptional person off the court as well. So best of luck to Big O.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is a shame that he doesn't get that last year, but I think USC is in good hands with Evan Mobley coming in with that roster that they do have. I'm excited to see what they can do next year, but congrats to Big O on the big decision. Any NBA team would be lucky. I want to move back into our regular scheduled programming with our first topic. I want to talk about USC football and what effects COVID-19 will have on it. I'm going to get your opinions after a little bit of this. After we hear from Brett Nealon, and we went to the first practice. I think, Tyler, you and I were there. I don't think, Trevor, you were able to make it. But the team had a lot of what they're calling the juice this year, and I'm really excited to kind of see how that is, and I'm really bummed that we don't get to see that juice this spring. But Brett Nealon, I spoke with him yesterday, actually. He talked a little bit about what the team is really missing out on this spring, by not having practice.
The defensive staff definitely has a lot of juice, and that trickled down to a lot of the players that were trying to do the right thing and learn and be juiced up. And so it's just kind of a bummer, we never got a padded practice, because I think that really would have been really fun for a lot of guys. The defensive staff.
So once again, that was Brett Nealon, the starting center for USC football. Guys, I want your takes. What is the biggest effect that COVID-19, the coronavirus outbreak, will have on USC football going into next season?
Well, I think when you look at how the season was supposed to start, USC had a huge marquee game lined up in their game against Bama. This already is going to set them back in their preparation when you look at all the other moving parts and pieces, new coaching staff, things moving a little bit around internally. I think they needed the momentum. Like you said, Sam, you and I were at that first practice, and there was definitely juice. You had the coaches yelling at the guys. I think how they carried that on throughout spring and then summer when you get those new guys joining in, not those early enrollees, they needed that momentum. You're looking at a Bama team coming off of an 11-2 season. They did not like the games that they were losing last year. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance. And then you throw in the mix that if Bryce Young does win out their quarterback competition, now you're looking at USC facing a young quarterback that they missed out on coming from California right down the freeway in a star recruit. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think they really lose out on a lot of momentum that they needed going into game one.
Who needs Bryce Young when you have Keaton Slovis, Tyler? Come on now. We already have our guy. But anyway, I think it really hurts them on the defensive side of the ball. You got Todd Orlando. You have all these new defensive staff coming in, trying to formulate a new system that's going to fit both what they're used to and what the players are capable of. And you don't get the time to work out the little kinks within that in the spring. So I think it's definitely going to hurt in terms of helping these guys really familiarize themselves with the new system and getting used to it and making those mistakes now in practice so they don't have to make them in the game when the plays actually matter. So I think it's going to make the learning curve a bit steeper come game time, which could bode poorly for this team.
I think it hurts the team in terms of how much physicality we're going to see from them during the season. I mean, all offseason, it's been harped on by this new defensive staff. We're going to hit more in practice. We're going to put pads on pads. But we never saw a padded practice in spring practice. The first one they had was just helmets. So I think that's going to hurt the team in terms of this culture that they were trying to instill. I also think it eliminates any chance of a quarterback battle between JT Daniels, who started his freshman year, tore his ACL last year, and Keaton Slovis, like you mentioned. I think this is absolutely Keaton's team now, 100%, because he has a year under his belt running the air raid offense versus JT Daniels, who hasn't had as much of a hands-on education in that regard. And then also communication, I think, will be very tough for this team when you're trying to stay in touch, install a new defense, install a new culture. You have guys in Hawaii. Like, are they really going to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. to go into team meetings? Like, is everyone going to be able to stay in touch and stay together as a team during a critical point where you're trying to build chemistry for a new season? So I think it's really those three things to look at right now.
Yeah, the one thing that I keep getting back to, and yes, all of your points are important. I think recruiting is another huge angle that's really important right now. But the momentum is what this is. They came into this flying off. USC as a whole right now had really great momentum in terms of the athletic department. The basketball team was winning. The baseball team was winning. The USC football team hired a bunch of new defensive staff. They came in their first practice and had that energy. Their press conference had that energy. Everything was going in the right direction for USC in terms of an athletic department, and now they're at a standstill. That juice that Todd Orlando and his staff built up for that first practice, where is it now? Obviously, you try to replicate that over Zoom meetings, over Aaron Osmus's, Instagram workouts that he's providing for the players. But I mean, you can't get the same amount of juice that you're going to get from having those spring practices, from having that physicality. So I think all of the points kind of boil into this, where it's, USC's really at a loss right now. It's hard to build that momentum and keep that juice up in this situation right now. And I think that's the biggest impact that this really has on USC.
The bright side of football is that everyone in the Pac-12 is dealing with this same issue. Not a lot of teams had a chance to get many spring practices in. But I think with a situation like this, the teams that are going to benefit the most, are going to be the most okay not having practices and having everything canceled, are the teams with the culture in place, teams with routines like a Clemson or an Alabama of the world, where it's kind of like they're on autopilot already. The car is already driving itself. But at USC, the car hadn't even gotten out of the driveway yet. They were installing a new defensive system. Now that's been put on hold. And I think when you talk about the Pac-12, yes, there's a lot of upheaval, new coaches in Washington, new offensive coordinator and Oregon. But I think this will hurt USC the most out of any Pac-12 team, just because they've had sluggish starts to seasons in the past. Like, how sluggish of a start are they going to have now? And is Clay Helton going to use this as an excuse if they lose some big games early on? If they not only lose to Alabama but lose to a Stanford, is he going to blame it on coronavirus? So I don't know. I just think that when a team like USC that has struggled out of the gate in years past, I think this hurts them more than just about any other team in the Pac-12, even though they're dealing with the same situation.
No, I don't think Helton's in the business of coming up with excuses either, especially when this is something that's going to affect everybody across the board. But Sam, like you said, this is something that's going to slow the momentum. And when you look at football compared to any of the other sports that might be affected about this, football is one of the most team-based sports. And you look at the word self-isolation in of itself, what are you going to get out of that? It's hard to hold these guys accountable, and that's going to be a struggle. Even providing these at-home workouts for the guys through that Instagram that they have, how can you guarantee that some of these kids even have the resources and the instruments that they need to maintain their physical ability to play? I mean, what we'll probably see is some of these guys come back and half the team's going to be, full pace blown because they'll have all this workout time, and the other half, they didn't have access to those things. So it's going to be hard, but not just for USC, like Trevor was saying. It's kind of going to be across the board, mainly in the Pac-12.
I think they're in the best place that they can be with this coaching staff, because when they do get back, they have work to get done, and this coaching staff is not going to accept anything less than perfection, especially on the defense. Todd Orlando is a no BS kind of guy, and when they have to get back into this swing of things, there's no room for error. There's no room for dilly-dallying. There's no room for not being at the weight you're supposed to be at when they start back up. And I put full faith in Orlando and his team. I want to move on to the next one. USC's Pro Day was canceled this week. It was supposed to be today, Wednesday the 25th, March 25th, and the Trojans were one of the last ones to cancel. They canceled due to the stay-at-home order by the state of California, and it effectively ends the pre-draft evaluations for all of USC's seniors that graduated and are going to the draft. John Houston Jr., Christian Rector, Austin Jackson, and Michael Pittman Jr., obviously Pittman and Jackson having an opportunity at the NFL Combine to kind of showcase their skills. But now, come April, come 4 weeks from now, the NFL draft is here. It's still going on. It's going to be remote. And it hurts kind of everyone for USC, I think. Who do you think it hurts the most, guys? What's your take? Tyler, let's start with you.
Well, I think when you look at who it hurts the most are the guys that never got the opportunity to begin with in the Combine, like John Houston, guys that maybe needed a little bit of push if there was potential to begin with. Those are the guys, that needed the time with the scouts there. But where the focus was just on them. I mean, you're looking at scouts now, and they also were having to do everything remotely. What's to say that they're going to put their focus on one guy at a time, which is something that each pro day provides. So Christian Rector, he's a little bit of a name that's a little bit more talked about, and people are more familiar with his style of play. Whereas, John Houston, the way he was playing, I think really sparked, especially.
I think it's got to be Austin Jackson that's going to suffer the most from this. Obviously, he did have the chance to participate in the Combine, and he has started for 2 years. But when you talk about USC draft prospects, he's the one that's the most up in the air. You look at experts, some say he could go in the top 15. Others say he's more of a third-round pick, and that's because of inconsistency on the field. Like this season, for example, great games against Stanford and Utah, but really struggled against Iowa, maybe the worst game of his college career. And that's the last time scouts had a chance to see him. So I think a lot of people were hoping he would come back for his senior year and develop more. Instead, he decided to go to the draft. Hard to argue there. It still has a chance to make millions of dollars. But I think a pro day would have been another chance for scouts to see him up close and personal. And I think larger overall, the people that hurt the most from this are scouts, because they're not getting these firsthand evaluations. They're not getting the chance to interview as many prospects as they would like to in years past. And when you talk about that, I mean, these people are making $1 million investments in their franchises. They are putting their reputations on the line to evaluate these guys and pick them and bring them into their organization. And I think there's a real chance that the draft gets delayed because of that, because guys aren't able to make full evaluations of players. They're not able to go to pro days, talk to coaches in person. I mean, scouting is still very much like an old-fashioned type of business where it's all about relationships. It's all about building relationships with coaches and players, and they can't do that right now. So I think there's a very, very real chance that the draft gets delayed, even though it's going to be done remotely.
Trevor, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm also going to disagree with Tyler. One, I don't think the draft is going to get delayed. They already made the decision to keep it remote. We're at the height of we're not at the height of this, but we're very bad in terms of the coronavirus right now. And if they were going to cancel it, they would have done that already. It getting worse right now is not going to influence their decision in any way. But I'm going to disagree with your two players. I'm going to go with Michael Pittman Jr. I agree more along the lines of what Trevor's saying with the whole improving the draft stock from the Combine, whereas John Houston Jr., he's going to get drafted late. He's a great player. He's a great guy. Don't get me wrong. But he's going to get drafted late. He's either going to go in the 6th round or be an undrafted free agent. That's what it's looking like. Austin Jackson and Michael Pittman are really the only ones that can have something right now that's going to influence their stock. And what Michael Pittman Jr. needs to do is keep putting himself in front of scouts. He is a great receiver, and scouts need to realize that, and how they realize that is just seeing his tape over and over and over again. Maybe this actually, plays into it because they can look at more tape now that they're waiting around for this. But Michael Pittman Jr. has the biggest to gain from this, which is why I'm picking him. Austin Jackson, he's going to be rounds 1 to 3, no doubt. Probably I've seen a lot more stuff pushing him up a little bit, maybe towards the end of the first round. I don't think he can improve that much. Whereas Michael Pittman Jr., there's such a stacked receiver class that he can really improve his stock, and I think this was just one more opportunity for him to show scouts, hey, I'm a great receiver. You can draft me higher than than a lot of people are thinking you should. Reagan, I know you agree with me. I want to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing for Michael Pittman is every time he was put in a draft evaluation circumstance, he was kind of outshined, although he played very well himself. You go to the Senior Bowl, you had dudes like Denzel Mims who were catching eyes, KJ Hamler. So as well as he was able to play there, there were other dudes that the lights were on them as well. You go to the combine, you had to go and line up next to guys like Judy, like CeeDee Lamb, like Henry Ruggs. He's never really had an opportunity to be in isolation, all the lights focused on him by himself performing at his best. So I think the Pro Day was going to be his opportunity to do that. Now he doesn't have that opportunity. So again, he's mixed in this really, really, truly, exceptional class of wide receivers. And, this was going to be his opportunity to really separate himself. He doesn't get that now. Also, I do think he could have ran a 4.4, which would have, phenomenally increased his stock, because I think the biggest knock on him is his speed. A lot of times people conflate, the strides with the actual speed, but he's a very fast dude once he hits his top end speed. I think he was going to surprise some people with his 40 time. I think he was going to improve it. But with that said, I do think, to your point, the time with the tape and, actually observing what he's capable of on the field is going to ultimately help his stock. I think, the reputation he has as from a character standpoint, I think that's going to help him as well, especially now that you don't have the time to sit down in front of these guys and actually scout them. It's going to be based on your reputation and what people already know about you. And we all know that Michael Pittman's a stand-up guy. So I think ultimately this might help him, but he still just didn't have that opportunity to have that one-on-one, which would have helped him at his pro day.
Yeah, that 40 time to me just doesn't matter. I mean, he ran a 4.5. He's a big dude. He's got speed for how big he is. And he's not that guy that's going to beat you off the line. He's going to go up and get the ball. And he's going to fight for it, and he's going to come down with it. I don't think, obviously, you're not going to nix a guy if he has more speed. I'm not worried about that. But I think he's fine where he is. I think just putting himself in front of scouts again would be a great opportunity for him to maybe improve his draft stock.
I think it would have been a little marginal, though, because I think the good thing about Pittman that Reagan kind of touched on is he has 4 years of film, both as a receiver and on special teams. We know what he can do. I think his evaluation is already kind of set in stone. I'm not sure what else he could have done by, running around in his underwear a little bit more. I think we know who Michael Pittman is. We know who he is as a prospect. But going back to the draft, potentially getting postponed, I still think this is a very, very real possibility for another reason, and that's that a lot of markets in the NFL are currently in shelter in place, like including LA, both the LA teams, and then of course the Giants, the Jets. Are they going to say that it's a disadvantage that we have to do the draft from home, while maybe the Minnesota Vikings are all together in a war room making those decisions together, all the scouts, all the executives, all the front office employees in the same room? Whereas, in New York, they might have to do the draft from home. I think this is a very real chance that they say this is a competitive disadvantage. They go to the league office, say we can't do this the proper way, combined with the fact that scouts aren't able to meet with as many prospects as they would want to firsthand before they're making these $1 million investments. So I'm saying it right now, I think the draft gets postponed until at least the summer.
I agree. I think that there's definitely something to be said for the competitive disadvantage that could exist. However, I do think that the NFL knows what it has right now in an opportunity that there are no other sports going on. The NFL has seized, the sports world's focus, especially with everything that's going on in free agency, and that would only continue with the draft. And there's a lot of, obviously in this country, a lot of things are financially motivated, capitalism and all that. So I think that the NFL knows what it has right now in having the world focused solely on the NFL, because there's really nothing else going on, and I don't think they're going to pass up that opportunity, even though it might be unfair to some other teams.
Yeah, I don't see it happening personally. That's just me, but I want to move on to our next topic. The Olympics. Yesterday, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics were postponed. They said somewhere no later than the summer of 2021 for it to take place due to the worldwide pandemic. IOC had 4 more weeks to make this decision, deciding by mid-April. However, a lot of pressure from other countries fast-tracked that decision. So I want to get into your thoughts a little bit later, but actually this morning I had a chance to talk to an Olympian, Paige Hochschild. She's a USC water polo player who's taken the season off to compete with the national team. She's a driver for them. Here's what she had to say about the cancellation, her reaction to that.
Obviously it was a shock to us all. I mean, we kind of saw it coming. We knew it was a possibility, but it was obviously a bummer because we were so close. But I mean, we understand there's not much we can do about it, and obviously it's the right call. I haven't gone more than a week or two in the past 10 plus years without being in a pool, so this is kind of crazy for me. I'm definitely going a little stir crazy, and I'm just worried about what it's going to be like when I do get back in the pool and losing fitness and all that stuff. So it feels super weird. It definitely gives me a little anxiety, but I'm trying to enjoy it.
That was Paige Hochschild, one of the drivers for Team USA, the water polo team. She also competes for USC. Guys, the Olympics this is not something unusual for the Olympics to cancel it, but delay it. They've never done it before. The 2 cancellations come with the 2 world wars. Guys, do you think this is going to help or hurt the product for the Olympics when they put it in 2021, most likely?
Obviously, it's going to come with some logistics that has to be figured out, but that's everything. Every sport across the board is having to deal with that. I think it would have hurt them had they not postponed it, because now you're putting multiple athletes at risk from multiple different countries, and then you get the fan base. People don't have the capacity right now to be worried about watching the Olympics. It should be something that you're excited about, not worried about. And especially when you have teams like Canada being the first to vocally withdraw, that would have turned into a nightmare. Like you said, Sam, the Olympics hasn't necessarily been delayed before in, I think, 124 years history of this. It has been canceled twice due to the world wars, but this is a global pandemic, something that's affecting everybody. I think the IOC made the right call. You would have been facing a disaster across multiple boards had they kept it for this year. It is going to come with challenges, but so is everything else.
I think it's like Trevor. Trevor, go please.
I think this will actually end up helping athletes in the short term, because think about it. You have the biggest imagine you have the biggest final of your life. You need to pass this test in order to graduate from college. And then your professor's like, you know what? I'll give you another week. You're going to take that week. You're going to cram. You're going to study even more than you had in the past. So I think that's kind of what these athletes are being dealt right now. They're being given a whole nother year to prepare for the Olympic Games. And I think also when you think about the fact that for Olympic athletes, there's such a small window of time that you have to, build your legacy on the highest stage. Like you maybe have 3-4 Olympics, by it being only 3 years apart between this one and the 2024 Olympics. I think that maximizes more potential for athletes in the short term. But I think overall, it will create some logistical confusion, like the fact that, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Olympics will still be called the 2020 Olympics, even though it'll be held in 2021. I mean, that's going to be really weird. And then it still hasn't really been defined how the Paris Olympics are going to move forward. They're supposed to be in 2024. Will those move past will those move a year in advance and be in 2025, and then we'll go that way forever? I'm not sure. But I think in the short term, when you give athletes a whole nother year to prepare for this event, I think the product's going to be that much better. You might have new, younger athletes that come of age and are able to compete in that. So I think it'll be one of the best Olympics of all time. Definitely the most highly anticipated. Once that happens, the world will kind of be able to exhale, and it'll be a huge celebration, a huge time of healing. So definitely looking forward to that. It sucks that we have to wait an entire year.
Trevor, I agree with you a little bit. I want to touch on this before I get to Reagan, just because I think it kind of goes along with that. I think what it could do is build a little bit more hype for that. Obviously, it's not good for a lot of these athletes, but here's what you have. You have a 4-year schedule, right, where you have to train, you have to go through all these trials, you have to make teams, however it works for whatever sport, right? What do they do for a year? If they postpone this to the summer of 2021, what do you do during that whole year?
You keep training.
Do we put in, well, you keep training, right? But you also need matches. Do we have like scrims between the countries? Could that be something that we see? Like, could there be scrimmages for those countries? And maybe it'll build the hype. It's kind of like a preview. It's a little sampling. It's a little appetizer. It's the Olympic appetizer is what I'm going to call it. So I think it actually might help the product, actually. Really interested to see how it goes. I don't think the branding thing, they've already spent so much money on Tokyo 2020. They're not going to change it. It's got to stay that way. And as for London, they're going to keep it in 2024. You want to keep that 2-year difference between the winter and summer Olympics. I think everything's going to stay normal after that, but I'm really excited to kind of see how this is going to go. I think it could actually be a little bit of fun. Reagan, give me your thoughts.
Trevor, back to your point with the analogy with the test, you have fallen victim to a false equivalency, my friend. That is a test of the mind and not of the body. And they have this training down to a science nowadays, especially when with the sports that train specifically for the Olympics, not like basketball or anything, but say a sport like track and field. They have it down to such a science that your training is, has the purpose of having you peak athletically at the time of which you're supposed to be competing in the Olympics, or near that time for that matter. So throwing everything off a year is going to ultimately, throw off that training a little bit. And some guys, they might be more physically fatigued or exhausted, or they're, things of that nature heading into the 21. So my fear is that you get, the best athletes in the Olympics, but not necessarily performing at their peak performance, which is, I think, what makes for a great Olympics is the best people in the world performing at their top performance. I think that we might miss out on that. Although, as always, the Olympics will be a great product. I just fear that they won't be at their absolute best come 2021.
Got a whole other year.
But you guys also have to realize that things are getting pushed back because not everybody has the luxury of training right now. Obviously, yes, at the Olympic level, they probably are still training, but they also have so many other things to worry about. I mean, think about extended family that they're probably also worrying about. It's not like they're still focusing this time and they could have jumped right in. The world is continuing to this pandemic, and because of that had to be halted. So everything's kind of getting shifted over because of this. But Trevor, like you said, if the professor pushes back a test 1 week, graduation is not also pushed back 1 week. So you kind of just figure it out and catch up.
That's an all right point, but I want to go back to the name for 1 second, what you said, Sam, because the thing with the name, and not only is it confusing that it'll be called the 2020 Olympics in 2021, but I don't think anyone wants to see anything related to 2020. This is the worst freaking year ever. Everybody wants to forget about 2020. I don't want to be reminded when I'm watching the Olympics and see 2020 in the corner. I want to move forward to 2021, change it to the 2021 Olympics.
Redemption.
I don't care how much they've spent that year. I want that year to be in the past. I want to focus on the future. They need a new logo, spend all the money again. I don't care. They need to make it the 2021 Olympics. That's ridiculous.
Do you know how much time I spent making this logo right here, this sports scene logo? If you told me I had to change it 4 months after designing it, I would kill
Trevor
you.
Doesn't care because he's not the one.
You have no idea. They're gonna keep it as 2020. I guarantee. No, they're gonna keep it. All right, I want to move on to our next segment. This is a recurring segment we're gonna do every week called The Kitchen, serving up hot takes. Everyone's coming with a hot take. We're gonna start with mine. Anything goes, any sport. It could be related to sports, movies, whatever it is. But my hot take that I want to present to you guys today is that the USC football team, will beat the spread against Alabama at the start of next season. I don't know what the spread is yet, but I'm gonna go with like 10-14 there. Trevor's leaving. Trevor's out. They're gonna beat the spread. And the reason I'm saying that is if that defense gets kicking, they're going to be good. I trust Keaton Slovis against almost anyone, and I know Alabama has a great defense. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying it's going to be a close game. I don't know if USC is going to win yet. Stay tuned for my hot take on if they're going to win. I haven't been wrong about Helton being fired in the past 2 years. I said he's going to come back both years, so I'm hot on my hot takes right now. But I think they're going to beat that spread. Let me tell you why. Alabama has a new quarterback coming in, right? Whether that's going to be Bryce Young or, Tua's younger brother. Whatever it is, they have a weakened offense, and I think that USC defense, if it can get kicking and keep their offense out there a lot longer than they were doing in that Iowa game, they're going to have a really solid chance, and USC knows how to put up points now. That offense, that's what it did in their first year under Graham Harrell. Imagine what it's going to do under 2 years. And that defense under Todd Orlando is going to be savage. I'm so excited for this game. I will be there. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I will be there in Dallas for that game. I am 100% positive.
Ticket now. Whew, they're cheap.
Maybe I will.
Cancel your flights. Hopefully this coronavirus outbreak continues, just so you guys won't be able to fly to Dallas, because that is going to be the worst game ever. I've been an SEC football fan.
Oh my goodness.
I know more than the rest of you about having my soul crushed by Alabama. I don't care if the spread's 35, 45. Alabama will win this game by 50 for the simple reason that they are Alabama and USC is still USC. I don't care who's playing quarterback. They have all these receivers coming back. I mean, Alabama never has players come back and forego the NFL draft. They have offensive linemen coming back. They have defensive players who decided to come back for their senior years. You know why? Because this team is angry. They're tired of hearing about LSU, Joe Burrow, Coach O, go Tigers. They don't want to hear that anymore. They're ready to their claim on top of the college football mountaintop. They're coming back with a vengeance, so they're going to be angry. The last time they played a regular season game, they lost to Auburn, their most hated rival. They're going to take that out. USC might as well be Auburn in this game. They're going to pretend they're wearing Auburn uniforms. They're going to take it out on them and absolutely beat the crap out of them.
You want to talk about returning talent? Let's talk about returning talent. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Tyler Vaughns, Brew McCoy, Kyle Ford. Those are weapons.
Brew McCoy and Kyle Ford haven't played yet. They're not returning.
But they're good. They're pretty darn good. I know you're gonna rely on your boy Gary Bryant Jr., but Brew McCoy and Kyle Ford are putting in work. They looked fantastic in that one practice they had.
Receivers don't win national championships. It's built on the trenches. That's what Alabama does better than any other team in the country, and that's what USC has really struggled with. Maybe all those freshman offensive linemen that they got this year, they're going to have to develop fast. They're going to have to rotate like 6 of them out at a time because Alabama is going to take the fight to USC in Dallas, and I anticipate it being an ugly game, even worse than the 2016 one. And I'm not trying to be overly negative. I think USC could go on after that and have a great season, maybe if their ego recovers. But I think Alabama is going to be angrier and better than we've seen them ever before.
9 times out of 10, I'd agree with you, Trevor. But, this Todd Orlando guy, I think it brings a different type of energy. And usually I would say USC's not up for that kind of fight. But he seems like if I remember the quote correctly, he said, if you want to be a good fighter, you have to get into some fights. He's going to put these guys through the ringer whenever they're ready to practice again. I think that's going to help them prepare mentally and physically for this game. I'm with you, Sam. I think there's a decent chance that they beat the spread. I think there might be a chance they win the game, honestly.
Yeah, newsflash. If you haven't heard this or understood this yet, Todd Orlando is a lunatic in the best way possible. This dude is nuts, and I love it. I want to move on. I want to get to Tyler's hot take. Tyler, what do you have for us?
My hot take is Chargers move up in the draft to pick up none other than Tua Tagovailoa. I'm really pushing for this. Obviously, Miami has a lot there in the draft, but I think this might be the one time that we finally see the Chargers inside team get a little aggressive and move up to pull Tua. And I'm going to tell you why. You see that great relationship with Anthony Lynn and Tyrod Taylor, but Taylor's not a franchise QB. He hasn't seemed to get there in at this point in his career. He's not getting there now. Tua does pose a little bit of a health risk, but I think they're willing to take it. I don't think they're going to pick up another old guy. They haven't shown any interest. Obviously, if they weren't willing to get Tom Brady, they're definitely not going to go for Cam Newton. But I would be more than excited to see Tua definitely over Herbert in Los Angeles. Almost said San Diego.
Hey, well, what is the best indicator of a future action? What you did in the past. The Chargers have never got it right when it comes to their quarterback, and I don't think the times are going to start for them now.
They haven't.
They're going to stand where they're at, and I think they're going to end up getting Justin Herbert, who, frankly, I like him as a prospect. I don't think he's anywhere near where Tua is at right now, but I do think Justin Herbert has some potential there. But I just don't see the Chargers. They're not risk takers. They're not, people that tend to want to, put all the chips on the line for one guy. They're going to stand pat, and they're going to get Justin Herbert.
I'm with you there. I think when you look at the Chargers, their biggest priority is putting some amount of fans in that new stadium, SoFi Stadium, that's opening up this year. And if Tua's
Herbert's not going to do that.
I agree with that, but I don't think Tua's going to be able to do it either because I don't think he's going to play.
And who is?
I don't think he's healthy yet. I think they're going to take a chance on someone like Cam Newton for a very cheap price. He's a free agent right now. He's already got all the branding that they want, and I think they open up the stadium with Cam Newton as their starting quarterback with Tyrod Taylor behind him.
You mean open up the Rams stadium?
That's a good point.
They gotta fill those stadiums. They haven't been doing well.
They have the same logo. I'm confused.
The Rams aren't that exciting of a team this year anyways. I think that the Chargers finally take a risk, like you're all saying. Telesco, not much of a risk taker, and Lord knows the Spanos family has not brought the Chargers fans anything to really hold on hope. You obviously let go of Melvin Gordon, and if you ask me for a mini hot take, I'm still going to go Austin Eckler has more rushing yards than Gordon this year in the AFC West. But you need Tua. You can't rely on Tyrod Taylor, and I don't think Herbert has what it takes to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. I obviously hope nothing for the best of them. This is a hard job for these guys as is, but I don't think he's the right fit. I would like to see the Chargers make a little swerve and change history a little bit.
I will say that if there's ever a better time for the Chargers to make a switch and start taking those risks, it's now, because that team has a boatload of talent. You look at this, especially on the side of the ball.
They have a Super Bowl caliber roster.
They got Derwin James. They have a very talented roster. I just don't see it happen because they're just not the risk-taking type. You can't change like that in the offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they want a spot in the top few, I know that Detroit knows how to mess up a draft, so they might get a pick from Detroit up there. But I want to move on to our next hot take. I'm excited to see where Tua does go. I think this is going to be a very fun draft, even though it's going to be remote or whatever capacity it's going to be in if it's delayed. Reagan, what is your hot take?
All right, we were just talking about risk takers, right? Why don't we talk about my favorite risk taker, Jameis Winston, who I think will be, at some point in his career, arguably in the near future, a franchise quarterback.
No.
You hear why? Because Jameis Winston
No, I don't want to hear why.
I'm pretty sure I might be the only person on earth who thinks this, because everywhere I turn, it's someone else telling me I'm crazy for it. But Jameis Winston has one clear and evident problem, and it's the turnovers. But that has been a product of a lot of different things. Part of it is a bad offensive line. Part of it is a strong lack of a run game. Part of it's poor decision-making. Part of it's mixed signals from his coach. But I think all those things together have played into what we saw this season, which was 30 interceptions. But let me ask you guys this. How many quarterbacks in the NFL can put together a season in which they throw 5,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns?
And how many interceptions?
You're right. He's the only one that can throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. And you know what?
That's all anyone wants to harp on is the interceptions. But I think that's an issue that can be fixed, right? I think Jameis Winston has a mentality about him that thinks he needs to take those risks, those stupid risks, to win football games. And I think if you can teach him out of those habits, which I don't think Bruce Arians was the right coach to do it, because he can kind of send mixed signals at times. I think if he gets into a situation where, say, he goes to Pittsburgh, backs up Ben Roethlisberger for the rest of his career, gets under the tutelage of a guy like Mike Tomlin, you could see Jameis Winston be the best version of himself, which is a guy who puts together maybe not 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, but, 4,000 plus yards, 25 plus touchdowns without as many interceptions as we saw this season. The guy has the talent, all the talent in the world to be a franchise quarterback. It's a mentality switch that he needs. And I think he
But Reagan, how many quarterbacks have you seen become franchise quarterbacks late in their career? Like how many more years does the league need to give this guy?
He's still a relatively young player. I mean, we look at, he wasn't a 4-year guy. He came out, I think it was after 2 or 3 years in Florida State. Like and the biggest problem with Jameis Winston in my mind is that he hasn't made strides since entering the league. The guy he was when he first got here is pretty much the same guy that we see now. But I think that's due to a lot of things that were going on in Tampa Bay that aren't positive for a young quarterback. I think you get him on the right development track. We've seen time and again, young quarterbacks who sit for a little bit and then enter the NFL scene, that's when they succeed. So I think he needs to get that time on the bench to really get a different perspective on the game. And he can be a franchise quarterback.
The way I see it is if you're throwing stones into a lake, every now and again you're going to hit a fish. And that's Jameis Winston. He's throwing a lot of balls everywhere, and there's a lot of interceptions. Yeah, he does complete the ball. Yeah, he does have a lot of yards.
What a Midwestern thing to say.
I'm sorry.
You guys say
no.
What
is it? I don't know. I've never said that before, but you get the analogy.
What is like?
All right, stop coming ad hominem at me, please, Jesus. No, but the way I see it is Jameis Winston's not a franchise quarterback. I don't think he ever will be. But I want to stay on the topic of Tampa Bay. Trevor, I know your hot take. What do you have for us?
I'm going to go back to Reagan's real quick and just say, man, is the quarantine getting to you? Do you need me to?
The quarantine, you know what I do with my quarantine? I sat down and I watched all 30 of his interceptions. And let me tell you, a lot of them in the fourth quarter when he was down, and a lot of them came in situations where you could tell he looked like he felt like he needed to be the hero for his team. If he just gets out of that hero ball mentality, you have a franchise quarterback.
You know who made a lot of mistakes? Dan Orlovsky during the 2008 Detroit Lions season when they went 0-16. I don't excuse running out the back of an end zone. He was never going to be a franchise quarterback, neither will Jameis Winston. Trevor, give me your take.
Dan Orlovsky threw a lot of stones into a lot of lakes.
Nothing.
Hit a fish with this one. Talking about Tampa Bay still, this might seem like it supports Reagan's take, but it doesn't. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will not make the playoffs with Tom Brady. This reminds me of the Browns, how much hype they're getting, talking about all the weapons they have. bringing in. But the bottom line is Tom Brady is 43 years old. He is nowhere near the quarterback that we were used to seeing him in his previous Super Bowl winning days. And even though they have all those skill players, all those stars, they don't have the offensive line to make it work. I think Tom Brady will have a decent year, but I also think you combine that with the division that the Buccaneers play in against the Panthers, who got Teddy Bridgewater. The Saints aren't going anywhere. The Falcons are making moves. I think the Buccaneers are left out of the playoffs, continuing their streak. They haven't won a playoff game, or they haven't been to the playoffs since 2007, when I'm pretty sure Reagan was still in diapers. They haven't won a playoff game since 2002. That streak will continue. They're getting way too hyped up right
That's
now.
the hot take. Hold on. I was 6 years old. That's the hot take. I was out of diapers by 6, man. Don't do me like that.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, gosh. I'm with you because you know what I just said about Jameis Winston. I think that situation is not conducive to winning. So I'm with you 100%. I don't think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a playoff team, especially in that NFC South that just got a lot of talent in there.
I know you guys are taking all my talking points. I don't think the issue is with Tom Brady and with the Buccaneers. I actually think that they have set up a team for him to be successful. And they've had a great offseason in that sense. But I think so has everybody else around them. You know, Saints securing their successful team with Drew Brees. You know, who dat nation believes in that team. And I think they're going to be the top team in that division. But then you look at Todd Gurley going to the Falcons. He's going to add a lot there to their running game. And then you have Teddy Bridgewater to the Panthers. They still have a lot of moving pieces. What they do under Matt Rule will be interesting, but I don't think it's going to be an easy task for Tom Brady. And because of that, I think, you know, Trevor's hot take actually isn't that hot because it's something that is pretty realistic.
Trevor, I'm gonna disagree with you, so you don't have everyone in agreement with you. But I first want to start with this one question. Year 2 of Tom Brady, do they make the playoffs?
If there is a year 2, I'm gonna say no because he's only getting older.
Okay, now let me tell you why you're wrong. Okay, listen, this is not Bruce's team. This is Tom Brady's team. Tom Brady is the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whether you like it or not. He is, whatever he says is law right now, all right? Tom Brady's a great player. He's going down, but he's still great, and he's got weapons around him, right? He's able to make a lot out of nothing, right? And I know under the Belichick thing that makes it working with the team a lot easier for Brady. But they got receivers. They got Rojo coming back. Rojo had a great season last year. I think he'll have a better season this year. Yeah, he did. Towards the end of it. Towards the end, I'm saying he's going to grow on that. I'm saying, like, he's moving up to where he should be in terms of a running back. I think they're going to make the playoffs. If not this year, definitely next year. I think there will be 2 years with Brady. I personally think he should have retired in New England. Obviously, he's a Michigan guy, so I'm a fan. But just end it with the Patriots, man. You got enough rings to put on your fingers. You got a whole handful. Like,
I disagree with you there because I understand why he made the move. He wanted to prove I can win without Bill Belichick. And this dates back to 2018 when Belichick wanted to trade him to San Francisco, wanted to keep Jimmy G. But he should have made this move a long time ago if he wanted to do this. He wanted to prove that. He should have left the Patriots when he was 35, 36, still on top of his game. Now I just think he's too old to get it done. He can't push the ball down the field. They have 2 downfield threats in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I think they're going to be frustrated by the end of the year not getting those deep bombs. So Jameis Winston actually had a stronger arm there. I think it's going to be a slight upgrade over Jameis Winston, but Jameis threw it. Don't get too excited.
I mean, you sound like you argue for me.
He's definitely an upgrade over Jameis Winston. He's not going to throw 30 interceptions. That alone is enough. But I think it was a little too late for him to make this move, and I think it's tough for one guy to change an entire team's culture when they're used to losing like they are.
That's fair. I agree with that to an extent, but I still think you're wrong. We seldom agree on our hot takes, Trevor. Anyone else want to say anything about Trevor's hot take before we wrap up?
I just don't think Brady's, I think he's on the older side, man. I'm with you 100%.
I think every year we kind of have this team that we decide that the media, I hate to just say the media like a blanket statement, but we as sports fans decide to sort of hype up, and get behind. I think it was like the Giants a few years ago. It's been the Jags in the past, and it was the Browns last year. Everyone hyping them up because they added a couple nice bells and whistles, but it comes down to the culture. It comes down to the coaching, and those are 2 things that Tampa Bay hasn't had since John Gruden was there when Reagan was actually in diapers.
Okay. I will say it takes a lot more than a quarterback and wide receivers to make a good football team. They don't have an offensive line. I disagree with you, Sam. I don't think they have a running game. Their defense is average at best. So it takes a lot more than just Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Tom Brady to make a good team. So, yeah, it's just not there.
All right, well, I'm going to wrap things up for today. Guys, thank you for taking the time to be here with me, Tyler, Reagan, and Trevor, all from across the nation.
Thank you.
That wraps up Season 11, Episode 7 of Sports Scene. We're going to be doing this every week at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Tune in. Please watch it. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear this. We're constantly looking to improve. We're constantly going to be giving you the best coverage you can possibly get here on the web. That's going to wrap it up today. Guys, once again, thank you for tuning in. Signing off, Sam Marcelinian. See you guys next week.
Bye.